This story is titled, "EV Never Been Attracted to You," my wife casually admitted. So, I left without a word. But she didn't expect what happened next. Hey, everyone. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now, let's start the video. Guess I should start at the beginning, right? I, 32 male, really thought I had a good marriage with Sophie, 29 female. Not like fairy tale perfect or anything, but solid AF. We'd been together almost 4 years, married for 2, and I honestly believed we were doing pretty good. I worked my ass off at my construction management job, making sure we had a nice place in a decent neighborhood, took her out regularly, bought her little gifts, the whole package. I straight up loved this woman, like wake up feeling lucky just to see her face kind of love. She seemed sweet too, always making my lunch for work, sending cute texts during the day, planning these small surprises that showed she cared. That's what I thought, anyway. This one time when I got the flu real bad, she stayed home from her job to take care of me. Made soup, kept checking if I needed anything. All that stuff makes you feel like you've got someone who gives a damn about you, right? But around a couple months ago, things started feeling weird. Not any big thing at first, just little changes in how she acted around me. She started coming home from her accounting job, looking totally drained, not normal tired, like emotionally empty. I'd ask about her day, and she'd just mumble, "Fine," and zone out watching TV. Before, she was always telling me these wild stories about her crazy co-workers or clients, but now, nothing. What really got me worried was how she'd just blank out sometimes. We'd be eating dinner, and I'd notice she wasn't even touching her food, just staring at nothing, like her mind was somewhere else completely. When I'd ask what she was thinking about, she'd snap out of it and say, "Nothing," or "Just work stuff." Then she'd force this fake smile that never reached her eyes. "Babe, is everything okay between us?" I asked her one night after she'd barely said 10 words to me all evening. She looked at me with this weird expression, almost guilty. "Everything's fine, Ethan. I'm just going through some stuff at work. You know you can talk to me about anything, right? We're a team." "I know," she said, giving me that fake smile again. "I just need some space to figure things out. It's nothing for you to worry about." But I did worry. I started paying more attention, trying to figure out what was going on. Was she depressed? Working too much? Was it something I did? I started bringing her little gifts, planning date nights, trying to reconnect. Sometimes she'd seem happy about it, but it always felt forced, like she was putting on an act. Then came the day I heard something that made my stomach drop. I'd come home early from work because we finished a project ahead of schedule. As I was walking up to the door, I heard Sophie's voice through the open window. She was on the phone with her sister, Lauren. "I just don't know how to tell him," she was saying, her voice all serious. "It's not like he did anything wrong. He's a good guy. That's what makes this so hard." Lauren was put on speaker, so I heard everything. "Just rip the Band-Aid off," Lauren replied. "Divorce is never easy, but dragging it out only makes it worse." My heart practically stopped. "Divorce? What the fuck?" I stood there, frozen, not sure if I should go in or wait to hear more. But then Sophie started moving around, and I panicked. I backed away, got in my truck, and drove around for an hour, trying to process what I just heard. When I finally went home, I convinced myself I'd misunderstood. Maybe Lauren was getting divorced. Yeah, that had to be it. Sophie's sister was always having relationship drama. It couldn't be about us. We were solid, maybe not perfect lately, but nothing divorce-worthy. I walked in, acting normal, and Sophie was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up and seemed startled to see me. "Hey, you're home early," she said, quickly putting her phone face down. "Yeah, We finished that project ahead of schedule, I said, watching her carefully. Everything good with Lauren? Her eyes widened just slightly. Lauren? Oh, yeah. Just the usual stuff with her. I nodded, pretending to buy it. But inside, I was more confused than ever. Why was she lying? And what was she hiding on her phone? The next couple weeks were weird as hell. I kept playing that conversation in my head over and over. Sophie seemed more distant than ever. She was staying later at work, going out more with coworkers she never really talked about. I started wondering if maybe she was cheating. I know it's probably pathetic, but I started checking her socials more, looking for any clues about what was going on. But her Instagram was the same old boring food pics and office selfies. Her texts didn't show anything weird when I glanced at them. I tried stepping up my game, even more cooked her favorite meals, suggested a weekend getaway, even bought her this necklace she'd been eyeing for months. She seemed touched, but there was still something off in her eyes, like she was looking at me and feeling guilty about something. That night, I lay awake next to her, wondering if our whole marriage was just some kind of story I'd made up in my head. I kept thinking, what if everything I thought was real wasn't? Then came that Friday night where everything shattered. Sophie said she was going out with work friends for some office thing been happening more lately. She'd come home tipsy and go straight to bed, but this night was different. I was half asleep on the couch, watching some stupid movie, when she stumbled in around midnight. She wasn't just tipsy, she was totally wasted. Her makeup was all smeared, and she could barely walk straight. "Hey," I said, sitting up. "You good?" "I'm fine," she slurred, dropping her purse on the floor. She kicked off her heels and flopped down next to me on the couch. She smelled like she'd bathed in perfume, probably trying to cover up the smell of all the shots she'd done. "Have fun?" I asked, trying to sound normal, even though seeing her this messed up was making me nervous. "So much fun," she giggled, leaning her head on my shoulder. "The girls are so awesome, so much better than hanging around the office with all the boring people." Then she got this weird look on her face and started playing with my hair. "You know what one of the girls asked me tonight?" "What's that?" I asked, getting even more uncomfortable. She asked if I was happy, like really happy with my life and stuff. Sophie's voice got all serious suddenly. "Am I happy, Ethan? I don't even know anymore." This was definitely not normal drunk Sophie talk. "I thought you were," I said carefully. She sighed dramatically. "You're such a good guy, you know that? Like, so good that it hurts." The way she said it didn't sound like a compliment. "Thanks," I said, not sure where this was going. "No, really," she continued, waving her hand around. "You're good. You're stable. You're reliable, everything my parents ever wanted for me." I felt my chest get tight. "And what's wrong with that?" She laughed this weird laugh. "Nothing. Nothing's wrong with it. That's why I married you, because on paper, you're perfect." On paper. The way she said it made it sound like an insult. She turned to look at me with unfocused eyes. "Can I tell you something? Something I've never told anyone?" I nodded, even though every instinct was telling me to shut this conversation down. "I was never really attracted to you," she said, the words just spilling out of her like she was talking about the weather. "Not even from the beginning. I liked you. I respected you. But that spark thing, that makes you want to tear someone's clothes off? Never had it with you. It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach." "What the Sophie? My family was always on my case," she continued. Like I hadn't said anything. "When are you going to settle down? When are you going to find a nice guy? Stop wasting time with losers." She waved her hand around. "Then I met you, and you were everything they wanted from me, and I thought maybe this is what being an adult is. Maybe passion doesn't matter as much as stability." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So what? I was just convenient? A checkbox on your life plan?" "No, no," she said, reaching for my hand, which I pulled away. "I do love you, Ethan, just not the way a wife should love her husband. Not the way I loved." She stopped herself. "The way you loved who?" I demanded, everything suddenly clicking into place. There's someone else, isn't there? There's always been someone else. She closed her eyes and I could see tears starting. It doesn't matter. He's gone, has been for years. At that point, I didn't argue. I just froze and listened to her yapping nonsense. You know, she continued after a minute, her words still slurring together. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd followed my heart instead of my head. But my parents would have disowned me. They hated him so much. She let out this bitter laugh. They love you, though. Everyone loves Ethan, so dependable, so steady. Each word felt like a knife. All this time, I thought we had something real. Meanwhile, she was just settling for me because I looked good to her family. I wanted to feel it, you know, she continued, staring at the ceiling. I tried so hard to feel the way I was supposed to, and you're so nice to me, always doing things for me, making me feel guilty for not loving you the right way. I didn't realize loving your husband was such a burden, I said, my voice shaking. It's not a burden, she said, her eyes getting heavy. It's just not what I thought it would be. Not what I felt with him. Who is he? I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Doesn't matter, she mumbled, her eyes closing. Gone now. Long gone. She passed out right there on the couch a few minutes later, still in her dress, makeup smeared across her face. I sat there in the dark, feeling like my entire world had just collapsed. Everything I thought I knew about us was a lie. Every kiss, every I love you, every night we spent together all built on. I was just the safe choice, the guy her parents approved of, the backup plan for when her real love didn't work out. I grabbed a blanket and put it over her, not because I felt any kindness toward her in that moment, but because it was just automatic after 4 years together. Then I went to our bedroom alone and packed an overnight bag. I couldn't stay in that house, not after what I just heard. I checked into a motel a few miles away. Didn't even text her to say where I was, just needed to be away from her and process what the hell had just happened. I lay on that lumpy motel bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying her words over and over. I was never really attracted to you. I couldn't stop wondering who this guy was, this person she'd apparently been comparing me to for our entire relationship. I had so many questions, but I wasn't sure I could handle the answers. By morning, my phone had about 20 missed calls and texts from Sophie, typical panic stuff. Where are you? I'm so sorry. Please come home. I didn't mean what I said. I was drunk and stupid. Please call me back. I finally texted back. Need some time. Don't contact me for a few days. Then I turned off my phone and just sat there in that crappy motel room, trying to figure out what to do next. My entire marriage, my whole future that I thought I had planned out, it was all based on a lie. She'd never wanted me. Not really. I was just the safe choice, the guy who looked good on paper. I called in sick to work for the first time in like 3 years, couldn't face anyone, couldn't pretend everything was normal when my whole life had just blown up. I needed answers, needed to understand how I'd been so blind. The worst part? A small voice in the back of my head kept saying maybe I'd known all along. Maybe I'd sensed that her feelings weren't as strong as mine. That something was missing. But I'd ignored it because I wanted so badly to believe she loved me the way I loved her. Monday morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I couldn't face anyone. Couldn't pretend everything was normal when my whole life had just exploded. I needed answers, needed to understand how I'd been so blind. I remembered that one person who might know the truth, Claire, Sophie's best friend since college. If anyone knew about this mystery guy Sophie was still hung up on, it would be her. I'd always gotten along decent with Claire, not like we were buddies or anything, but she seemed to approve of me and Sophie together. Would she tell me the truth? Only one way to find out. I texted Claire, asking if we could meet up for coffee, just said I needed to talk about Sophie. She seemed surprised but agreed. We met at this little cafe downtown Neutral Territory, man. The look on her face when she saw me told me everything. She knew. She knew my marriage was a sham and never said anything. I tried to stay calm, though getting pissed wouldn't get me answers. I didn't beat around the bush, just straight up told her that Sophie had confessed everything when she was wasted about. How she was never attracted to me, how she married me to make her family happy, how there was someone else she really loved. I watched Claire's face the whole time, looking for any reaction that would tell me she was surprised. There wasn't one. This wasn't news to her. Claire tried to soften it at first, saying Sophie did care about me, just maybe not in the way I thought, like that was supposed to make me feel better. But when I pressed her about who this guy was, she got all uncomfortable and said it wasn't her story to tell. That pissed me off. My whole marriage had been a lie, and she was worried about betraying Sophie's confidence. I pushed harder, and Claire finally gave me some basics, said it was someone from before Sophie met me, someone her parents hated. It ended badly, and Sophie was a mess afterward. Then she met me, and I was stable and kind, and Claire thinks Sophie genuinely wanted it to work. When I asked when exactly Sophie started acting weird, Claire said it was around January. That's when it clicked. January was when Sophie's company merged with another firm, when she'd started having all those after-work events and coming home later. The pieces were starting to fit together. I flat out asked Claire if this guy was back in Sophie's life, if he was working with her now. She didn't want to answer, but her face gave it away. I knew right then that whoever this dude was, he was back. And that's why Sophie had been so distant. I left that coffee shop with my mind racing. If this guy was back, if they were working together, that explained everything: her distance, her guilt, those mysterious late nights at work. Back at the motel, I tried to come up with a plan. I needed to know everything, all the lies, all the secrets before I could figure out what to do next. I had to understand exactly what I was dealing with. I decided to go back to our house when I knew Sophie would be at work. I didn't want to face her, yet didn't trust myself to keep it together if I had to look at her. The house felt different now, like I was walking into a stranger's place. I headed straight for our home office. Sophie always left her laptop unlocked, another sign of how much she trusted me, or maybe how little she thought I'd ever question her. I wasn't proud of what I was about to do, but I needed answers. Started with her emails, scanning through work communications, looking for anything suspicious. Nothing jumped out at first. Then I checked her Google Drive and found a folder labeled personal that I'd never seen before. Inside were dozens of documents that looked like journal entries. The first one was dated from 6 years ago, before we'd even met. I saw him today, Nathan. He was with some blonde, laughing like he didn't have a care in the world. It's been 2 years since he left, and it still feels like yesterday. Mom says I need to move on, find someone appropriate this time. As if my heart is just something I can control. As if I can just decide who to love. Nathan. I finally had a name. I kept reading, scrolling through entry after entry, watching the timeline of our relationship unfold from her perspective. The entries from when we first met were almost clinical. Ethan seems nice. Stable job, good family, polite. Mom already loves him. He's nothing like Nathan, which I guess is the point. My heart started aching. And there was one from right before our engagement. Ethan proposed tonight. I said yes. Everyone's thrilled, saying how lucky I am because he's a good guy, crazy about me. But right now, it feels like someone tore my heart out. Still, that should be enough, right? People settle down for way less every day. Maybe eventually my feelings will catch up, and this ache in my chest will fade. It has to. It made me sick to read it. All this time, I thought we had something real. Meanwhile, she was convincing herself to settle for me. I also saw the entries from January of this year. Nathan's back. His company merged with ours, and suddenly he's there, in the same building, taking up all the oxygen. He looks the same, but different, more mature. He asked about my life, and I showed him pictures of Ethan in our house, talking about how happy I am, the biggest lie I've ever told. We had drinks after work, just as colleagues, I told myself. But the way he looks at me, it's still there, that electricity, that feeling that nothing else matters when he's around. What am I going to do? I can't sleep, can't eat. All I think about is Nathan. Ethan's been so attentive lately, bringing me flowers, planning date nights. It makes me feel like the worst person in the world. He deserves someone who feels about him the way I feel about Nathan. Always have. There were more recent entries too, showing her guilt, her confusion, her attempts to recommit to our marriage. But it was too late. The damage was done. I closed the laptop, feeling completely numb. There it was, in black and white. I'd never been anything but a substitute, a placeholder for the guy she really wanted. I took pictures of some of the entries with my phone, then put everything back where I found it. I wasn't confronting her yet. I needed time to think, to plan my exit, because one thing was crystal clear. There was no coming back from this. I went back to the motel and just sat there, staring at the photos I'd taken of her journal. 4 years of my life, wasted on someone who was just using me as a stand-in, a backup plan, while she pined for someone else. Every memory I had with her was tainted now, every happy moment, every vacation, every holiday. None of it was real, not for her. I just felt empty, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left a hollow shell. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I couldn't stay married to Sophie not after learning the truth. That night, I finally called my brother Matt and told him everything. He was the only person I could trust with this. He wanted me to come stay with him, but I wasn't ready to face anyone yet. I needed to get my head straight first. Ethan, Matt said. You deserve better than that lying. He was right. I did deserve better. The next morning, I called a lawyer. It was time to end this sham of a marriage. I just wish I'd known the truth years ago, before I wasted so much of my life loving someone who never really loved me back. I spent the next week planning my exit strategy, met with the lawyer twice, started separating our finances, looked at apartments. I didn't tell anyone what was happening, not even my close friends. I couldn't stand the thought of saying it out loud. Sophie kept texting and calling nonstop. She even showed up at my work once, but I managed to avoid her. I only sent brief messages that I was okay, but needed space. She was freaking out. I could tell, probably worried I'd found out about Nathan. The lawyer said I had a solid case for an at-fault divorce based on emotional infidelity, but honestly, I just wanted out as clean and fast as possible. I didn't even care about getting everything I was entitled to, just wanted to be done with this fake marriage. After about 10 days of staying away, I decided it was time to face Sophie and tell her I knew everything. I arranged to meet her at our house on a Saturday afternoon. I'd already moved some essentials to a new apartment I'd found, so I wasn't going to be trapped there. Driving up to the house felt weird as hell. This place I thought we were building together, it was all based on a lie. I sat in my truck for a minute, trying to prepare myself for whatever she might say or do. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me again. When I finally went inside, Sophie looked terrible. Her hair was a mess. She had dark circles under her eyes, and she was wearing one of my old sweatshirts' classic move, wearing my clothes to play on my emotions. She ran toward me like she was going to hug me, but I stepped back. She launched into this whole speech about how sorry she was, how the things she said when she was wasted weren't true, how she'd been stressed about work and took it out on me. She kept saying she loved me, that she'd always loved me, that she couldn't imagine her life without me. I let her talk herself out, just stood there watching her perform because that's what it was. A performance, one she'd been giving our entire relationship. When she finally stopped, I told her I knew about Nathan. The color drained from her face. She tried to play dumb at first, asking, "Who?" like she had no idea what I was talking about. But when I told her I'd read her journal entries and seen the letters, she collapsed onto the couch. For a minute, she just sat there, staring at her hands. Then the excuses started pouring out. Nathan was just an old flame. Those journal entries were just a way to process confused feelings. She'd been trying to let go of the past and focus on our marriage. I didn't buy any of it. I told her I'd read everything. I knew she'd been comparing me to him our entire marriage. I knew she'd been pretending when we were intimate, maybe imagining him. I knew she saw me as the safe, boring choice her parents approved of. Then she switched tactics, started saying I'd invaded her privacy, that checking her computer was a violation of trust, like she was the victim here. I almost laughed. The nerve of this woman, cheating emotionally for our entire marriage and somehow trying to make me the bad guy for finding out. I pulled the divorce papers from my bag and set them on the coffee table, told her I was filing for divorce and had already moved most of my stuff out. That's when the waterworks really started full-on sobbing, saying I was throwing away everything we'd built together over a stupid mistake. I asked her which mistake she meant, marrying someone she wasn't attracted to, writing love letters to another man while wearing my ring, or lying to me every single day for 4 years. She got real quiet after that. Then came the line that really showed who she was. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? I cooked for you, cleaned for you, supported your career, played the perfect wife at all your work functions. I gave you the best years of my life. That's when I lost it a little. Told her I never asked for a perfect wife. I just wanted someone who actually loved me, who didn't have to pretend when we were together, who wasn't secretly writing love letters to another man while I was busting my ass trying to build a life for us. I suffered through sex with you for 4 years, she yelled, her face getting all red. Do you know what that's like? To let someone touch you when you're not attracted to them at all? I did that for you because I was trying to make it work. And there it was, the truth finally. She saw being intimate with me as something she suffered through. Every time I thought I couldn't feel more humiliated, she found a new way to twist the knife. I stayed calm somehow, just said, "Thank you for finally being honest. This makes my decision even easier." She backtracked immediately, saying she didn't mean it. She was just angry and hurt, but I was done listening to her lies. I told her to sign the papers or don't either way, I was gone. I wasn't going to fight, wasn't going to drag it out. I just wanted to be free of her and this fake marriage. As I was leaving, she grabbed my arm and said something I'll never forget. He doesn't want me either, you know. Nathan, he just wanted the thrill of sneaking around. Once I told him I might leave you for him, he backed off, said he wasn't looking for anything serious. That's not my problem anymore, I said and walked out the door. I went straight to my new apartment, no fake relationship, no pretending, just a place where I could start to rebuild my life without living a lie. That night, Sophie blew up my phone with texts and calls. She veered between begging me to come back and threatening me with how hard she'd make the divorce if I didn't. I didn't respond to any of it, just silenced my phone and tried to get some sleep in my new place. I wasn't naive enough to think this was over. Sophie wasn't the type to just let me walk away. She'd invested too much in our marriage, not because she loved me, but because it made her look good to others. The perfect husband, the perfect house, the perfect life, all a show she put on for everyone else. 3 days after our confrontation, a delivery guy showed up at my apartment with like 20 bags of takeout from my favorite restaurant. There was a note saying, "I remember what you like. I do pay attention. Please call me." I gave the food to my neighbors and didn't respond. Meanwhile, I was just trying to get my shit together. I went back to work and had to deal with all the awkward questions about why one suddenly moved out. I gave vague answers about growing apart because I didn't want to get into the humiliating truth. But about 2 weeks after I left, Sophie showed up at my apartment unannounced, just knocked on the door on a Sunday morning while I was still in my pajamas. She looked different. She'd cut her hair short and was dressed up like she was going to church or something. Totally not her usual style. I almost didn't let her in, but my neighbors were in the hallway and I didn't want to make a scene. Big mistake. As soon as the door closed behind her, she started crying, saying she'd made the biggest mistake of her life and she'd do anything to fix it. When I didn't immediately fold, she switched tactics and started listing all the practical reasons we should stay together: the house, we'd lose, the financial hit we'd take, what our families would think, how dating again in our 30s would suck. Not once did she mention actually loving me, just all these external reasons that had nothing to do with genuine feelings. I pointed this out, and she got frustrated, said, "Of course I love you. That goes without saying." I told her that was exactly the problem, it always went without saying, because she couldn't say it honestly. She'd never been able to. But I couldn't believe that she had the audacity of admitting that she'd gone to Nathan and told him she'd made a mistake, that she wanted to try again with him now that I was out of the picture. And guess what? He rejected her, said he wasn't looking for anything serious, and thought they were just having fun. Classic karma. She tried to spin this as some kind of revelation, that she'd finally gotten Nathan out of her system and now could fully commit to me like. I was supposed to be grateful to be her plan B again, after plan A rejected her again. The audacity of this woman never ceased to amaze me. I told her to leave, that we had nothing left to discuss except through our lawyers. She refused at first, saying she wouldn't go until I agreed to at least think about reconciliation. I had to threaten to call the police before she finally left, slamming the door so hard. I thought it might break. I couldn't take a rest from her. One night, I got a call from Sophie's sister, Lauren. We'd always gotten along pretty well, so I picked up. "I know what she did," Lauren said right away. "I've known about Nathan since college. I tried to tell her marrying you when she was still hung up on him was a mistake, but she wouldn't listen. Even her sister knew our marriage was built on lies." Lauren apologized for not warning me somehow, said she thought Sophie would eventually get over Nathan and grow to love me the way I deserved. "She did love you," Lauren insisted, "just not in the way you needed, not in the way a marriage needs." Small comfort that, but at least Lauren was being honest, which was more than I could say for Sophie. The lawyer suggested mediation instead of a drawn-out court battle, said if we could agree on the division of assets, we could be divorced in a matter of months, rather than a year or more. I agreed immediately. I didn't even care about getting my fair share anymore, the house, the furniture, most of our savings. She could have it all if it meant getting free faster. When my lawyer contacted Sophie with the proposal, she initially refused, said she wouldn't participate in anything designed to end our marriage, that she wanted counseling, not mediation. But when my lawyer made it clear this was happening with or without her cooperation, and that a court battle would only make everything more public and messy, she finally agreed. It's been 6 months since everything fell apart. Divorce was finalized last week. I let her keep the house, split savings 60/40ths her way. My lawyer thought I was an idiot, but I just wanted out. Signing those papers felt surreal. 4 years of my life ended with a few signatures. Sophie cried. I felt nothing, just empty. Guess that's progress. We talked after. She apologized again, said therapy was helping her see how she'd always made decisions based on other people's expectations. And guess what? Nathan got fired for sexual harassment. Turns out I wasn't the only guy whose wife he was messing with. She asked if we could be friends someday. I told her, no, you can't build a friendship on lies any more than you can build a marriage on them. As for me, things are looking up. Wasn't interested in dating for months. Then I met Olivia, an architect who works with my company. We got into an argument about some design specs on a job site and somehow ended up getting coffee. She's different from Sophie in every way, direct, honest, says what she means. When she likes something, you know it. When she doesn't, she tells you straight up. We've only been on a few dates, taking it super slow, but for the first time in forever, I'm excited about something real, something based on actual attraction, not convenience. I told Olivia everything, thought it might scare her off, but she just squeezed my hand and said, her loss, big time. No drama, no pity. Found out Sophie's selling the house and moving to Chicago. The whole Nathan situation exploded at her company. Can't say I'm sorry she'll be in another city. Sometimes I still get angry thinking about the years I wasted. But mostly, I'm grateful I found out before we had kids or wasted more time. In some weird way, I'm almost thankful finding out the truth showed me what I don't want, which made it clearer what I do want, someone who chooses me first, not as a backup. Don't know what'll happen with Olivia, maybe it works. Maybe not, but I'll never settle for being someone's second choice again. Life's too short for that. Thanks to everyone who shared similar stories, helped knowing I wasn't alone. And to those who said I was too nice in the divorce maybe, but I sleep fine knowing I took the high road. So, that's it. I'm moving forward, and for the first time in years, I'm actually excited about what's next.